in a second. But anyway, so the State Attorney General's office had some money from one of the bank settlements, and I don't remember which one, to do a land bank, to do land banks in New York State. But the State Attorney General, who's basically a law enforcement agent, right? I mean, he's not going to manage, a program like this. Would only sort of release the money to municipalities that created a land bank so that they could be run locally, by the different localities around the state. And so, but in order to do that in New York City, we needed a bill. And so we worked on the legislation, worked with Councilmember Brad Lander's office and a few other council members. And my memory is pretty clearly that we were all set with it, and the mayor's office balked because of all of the language that we had about permanent affordability in that legislation.
When was it?
This would have been 2013 or 14. I don't remember. But when the mayor finally released his full affordable housing plan last year, there was all kinds of language, and there were some mechanisms, around permanent affordability, and so that which had been off the table, to the extent that we were losing essentially free money. I mean, it wasn't free, right, because the banks had taken it from us, but but we were losing money that we could have gotten because we couldn't pass the legislation at that point. That, and so, you go now, right, and so there's Vicky Bean, who's the Commissioner of Housing, was speaking this afternoon, and, is very supportive of community land trusts. In rhetoric, we're still working on a set of legislative goals, and
you mean the square housing?
yes. So you've been following. Did you go to the? You went to it last week?
Yeah, I went to the press conference. Du, Schotti, das ist nicht für dich. Sorry, aber nee, kannst du zu Hause machen. I went to the press conference, but I didn't. Maybe I went to the first 1.5 hours of the hearings.
Right. Yeah. And so there are a set of goals that we're still very clearly working on. But it is a more the context doesn't feel as closed as it used to feel. I'll put it that way. That it does feel like there are avenues that the administration is not hostile. And so we'll see. I mean, we still need properties. We're working as well on a citywide community land trust to be able to acquire properties when they become available. Most likely from the public tax rolls. That when a property owner, isn't paying their taxes and it goes into tax foreclosure or tax forfeiture. We need an entity. We can say it should be permanently affordable housing, but we don't actually have an entity in place to step in and acquire it. And so we're working to create that now, and putting together, both sort of a set of bylaws for a new nonprofit corporation, and also a list of potential properties that we could be both sort of by type and sort of more precisely, like that property there, right? We know that that's a Section 8 contract that's going to be ending in 18 months. That's a potential acquisition, right? And being So anything from like the generic, properties with expiring contracts, expiring subsidized housing contracts, so that's sort of, where that process is right now. I was away for much of August and so I sort of fell off of a whole set of conversations in the latter part of the summer, and I'm just now sort of figuring out what I missed when I was away. And then I was also in the Twin Cities for much of July, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, looking at community land trusts there, because there are 6 community land trusts in the metropolitan area of Minneapolis and St. Paul, which makes it the densest concentration of CLTs anywhere. And they range from, and a lot of them are suburban, and they cover kind of big suburban geographies of, a full county will be a community.
How many houses in the portfolio?
That they'll have in their portfolio. The 2 big suburban ones. One has about 120 units, and one has about 60. There's a citywide community land trust for Minneapolis that now has about 230 properties in its portfolio. There's one in St. Paul. And the way, they're basically, Minneapolis and St. Paul are basically on opposite sides of the Mississippi River, at the top end of the Mississippi River. And so people refer to them as the Twin Cities, because they're basically on the other sides of the river from each other. And the one, it's been really interesting because the one in Minneapolis has been very aggressive about expanding, and is a citywide organization that has grown dramatically. And the one in St. Paul has made a very clear decision to focus on its core neighborhood, its core black neighborhood, and be a neighborhood organization. And it's been really interesting to kind of watch those 2 very different kinds of goals and patterns sort of play out.
And what would you think the New York one would be?
The New York one will be a hybrid that, we will construct a citywide one. And it will be, in many ways, like the citywide one in Minneapolis, where we're just sort of grabbing properties opportunistically where we can. But there'll be a geographic patterning to those, right? And the properties will be more in some neighborhoods than in other neighborhoods. But that's what I would anticipate happening. But at the same time, what we want to have happen are new neighborhood-based community land trusts, and have the new neighborhood-based community land trusts, be the real
East Harlem.
Yeah, in East Harlem, but also it would be great to have one happen in Bushwick. There's some interest in Bushwick. It'd be great to have one happen in East New York. If it's not too late in East New York, it might be too late in East New York.
New York is East Harlem for you?
No. East New York is in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah, East New York is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. And it went through a fairly significant rezoning a couple of years ago. We're now, about a year and a half ago, the rezoning. And so we may have missed that, because once you rezone, all of the real estate speculators are, and we can't.
You want to acquire buildings, not build new ones?
Usually we want to be acquiring buildings. We don't have the capacity to be a developer. The idea would be that, we'll be partnering up with a management company or management companies to kind of do, because we're not property managers. We're not going to build that capacity, right? That's not, and so that will be, that would be how I would expect that to sort of play out. Right now it's still in the aspiration stage, right? We're still looking at what could be. Look at that. So that's sort of where that,